And in the Nigerian setting, once you embark on a probe, you must find skeletons. If you don't find, Nigerians just won't understand what you have done.
Absolutely.
We are looking at the general principles of this discussion, and we're going to get into the real nitty-gritty now. Because what is happening in the Senate is different from what is happening in the House. Although at a point, both may converge. But we'll look at it separately. But then, Tope, governments anywhere, as we've seen in the situation in Greece, governments anywhere can become prodigal, can become profligate. But it will be a problem where you have the Reserve Bank of that government or of that country not independent of that government, in which case it's not able to call the government to order through its fiscal policies, measures.
Yes. Yeah.
If you subordinate the central bank to the day-to-day running of government, like the lawmakers are proposing, it's going to be a problem when you get a government that is either profligate or prodigal.
Certainly, that's exactly the problem, and that's exactly why we must speak up and try to see how this won't go through, because once it's done, it's done. It's going to take quite a long while for us to be able to come back to status quo ante, as it were. It's not as if the CBN does not take instructions maybe once in a while. There's some sort of moral situation, and there's some sort of course, interactions going on between the central bank governor, the Minister of Finance, the president also. I mean, CBN is not, even as we speak, an entity on its own.
Aloof.
Yes, certainly, that point must be made. However, the way it works is this. It's based on maturity. Not even the Bank of England. If David Cameron wants to have a discussion with the governor of the Bank of England, I'm sure he'll make himself available. Or the Reserve Bank chairman and Obama, they'll make themselves available, okay? But having said that, the way it works is that a certain level of respect between these two people is what makes an economy at least survive. I'm saying that today, because of the CBN Act of 2007, if there's any political request, even from the presidency, they think twice and say, well, this guy may bring up this act thing, and we don't want it to become rancorous. It's not as if they may not bring up some of those things. Let's look at the functions of CBN. It's really very ridiculous. Do you know how much pressure at times from political circles that the central bank undergoes in giving waivers to importers, for example? Okay? The president said, look, he's a member of our party. Give him the bloody waiver of several billions. But by the time, if they don't think about the fact that this is a professional organization that's independently run, then there's going to be a problem.
It's not an appendage of government.
There's going to be a problem. See, in Nigeria, we must be very, very clear about one thing. In Nigeria, we have a few peculiarities, and we're proud of them, okay? It's not to demur about. In Nigeria, the issue at stake is not between whether the central bank will be independent as they are now, quote and unquote independent. It doesn't mean that the people who are running it are not Nigerians, okay? Or the option is not between that and a certain level of dependence on government that also brings professionalism. No, it is between the present state that we have of independence and a total incursion of politics into the central bank. And that is where the problem is. See, by the time you have a central bank that's actually dependent on government, on National Assembly, on politics, then you're, of course, it will be back to maybe the Abacha days when a president can just say, look, our party has a campaign to win, and therefore, why don't you bring $10 billion naira for us to go and spend? And that's going to create inflation in society. So I'll quickly speak about the core functions of the central bank. Of recent, a school of thought, a school of thought has said, look, let's narrow the role of the central bank towards monetary policy. Let's narrow it towards the price stability, okay? And then you talk about monetary policy, not fiscal. Monetary policy in terms of the use of interest rate to control inflation, okay? However, there are a few more functions that the central bank performs. The integrity of your payment system. Right now we're talking of e-money, this and that. Before even e-banking and all that came on board, of course, you write your check, it goes to clearing. The central bank superintends over that. Usually on a daily basis, banks will have problems. Some will sell FX here, it won't get to the other side. The CBN adjudicates, okay, over that. Then you have, like I said before, international trade of the country. ensuring that everything that's imported into this country is there's what they call a Form M, an import form, that the right taxes are assessed on this, even of course the custom, in conjunction with the custom. You have what is called the NXP form, which is the export form. I was in banking for about 13, 14 years. Okay, you have all those kind of things going on in CBN. Okay, you have supervision, very critical. See, now by the time you take away the central bank independence, and the CBN cannot say, I'm sanctioning Bank A because their chairman happens to be a party stalwart somewhere.
Yeah. Or a friend of the president.
Or a friend of the president.
Or a friend of the Minister of Finance.
You cannot touch my bank. It is our bank. Then there's a problem. Look at the kind of intervention that happened in this country about 2-3 years ago when this gentleman Sanusi came in. Okay, look at the kind of, can anybody believe that we can not only intervene in a bank or banks even,
but
even
also owned by families,
but very critically, but also go after what they call personal liability of the people who run those banks aground. In fact, the truth is this, between me and you, in the United States, they could not do it. But in Nigeria, we're able to say, we're holding you responsible for collapsing this bank. Did you see the list of assets that they took from some of the bank MDs and chairmen? Some of them had 300, 400 properties all over the world. And we're able to do that. So, see, the risk we're running is that the CBN will not be able to intervene again. Do you know what it calls? They call what they call systemic crisis. In the banking industry, there's what they call counterparty risks. I may be strong at, maybe I won't advertise any of the banks here, but if I'm a strong bank standing gidigba, right? But I give money to another bank and it does not return the money on time, I begin to have problems. If you don't intervene on time, it is that independence that allows the CBN to be able to intervene on time. Yeah. The truth is this, between me and you, if you have to say, look, we want to intervene, and then we have to go and queue up in the National Assembly to get the bill written, to say, okay, to send the lobbyists in, and then the thing begins to go round and round and round, and then somebody say, look, this is not favoring our constituency, it is a regional thing, and then before you know it, this economy will collapse. The economy is hanging by a thread now, I must say. There's fiscal indiscipline which we are not been able to take care of.
Yeah, so it's just the monetary discipline that has been able to pull the string in a way.
In my view, really.
But, Mr. Abimomi, let's try to do some comparisons here now. We'll try to compare our situation with some other climes. Let's look at the structure of the Central Bank of Nigeria compared with the structures of banks of equal status in other climes. Maybe, the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States, the Egyptian Central Bank, the South African Reserve Bank, and all of that. I don't want us to actually talk about outside of Africa. We also talk about Africa, which is why I had done some work on the South African situation, even the Egyptian situation. Now let's compare all of these. Is there anything fundamentally wrong with the structure of the Central Bank of Nigeria vis-a-vis its functions that would necessitate this attempt to amend the Enabling Act?
Absolutely not. If you look at the Central Bank of Ghana as it is,
Central Bank of Ghana,
their structure is more or less the same as the Central Bank of Nigeria. The same thing with the Central Bank of Egypt. The board of the Central Bank of Ghana is headed by the governor of the Central Bank of Ghana. Yeah. The board of the Central Bank of Egypt is headed by the governor of the Central Bank of Egypt. Same thing with the bank,
the South African Reserve Bank has a 17-man board headed by the governor as well.
Absolutely, because all around the world, everybody knows that only professionals should head the central bank because of the functions that they perform in the economy. Now that the House of Reps is asking that the CBN governor should no longer be the chairman of the board of the central bank, what they are saying is they are bringing in an outsider who may not necessarily be a financial person to come and head the board of the central bank. Now, for every decision, every major decision that Sanusi or the executives of the central bank will have to take, they will have to revert to this chairman, who may not be, like I said, may not be a financial person. That is going to curtail and seriously dent the effectiveness and ability of the central bank to discharge these duties. Now, you're also asking that the executive directors currently at the central bank should be taken away from the board of the central bank. How is that going to happen? So that means you're going to leave only the central bank governor as the sole professional man in a board that's supposed to oversee the affairs of the central bank. It's very dangerous. It's nowhere It's not happening in any part of the world. In Ghana, in Egypt, in South Africa, even outside of Africa. Look at the European Central Bank. It's totally independent of any government in the entire Europe. And that is the reason they have been able to rise up and face the Greek crisis. That's the reason they were able to rise up and face the Northern Ireland crisis some years back. That's the reason why they've been able to handle a lot of crises before they blew out of proportion. Now, our CBN is right now in a very precarious situation because of the situations we have in Nigeria. We have an absurd situation in Nigeria where you have rising inflation in the face of rising unemployment. Ordinarily, that shouldn't happen. When you have unemployment, you should have decreasing inflation. But today we have rising unemployment, we have rising inflation. Now, the CBN is faced with the twin devil of trying to fight inflation and trying to fight unemployment. There are so many things that the National Assembly could do to strengthen the CBN right now, to help CBN perform these functions. The country, like I said, is on the brink.
Held by a thread.
A thread. This is not a time that the National Assembly should be distracting the CBN as it is, because I say this as a distraction. Should be distracting the CBN from carrying out its functions. This is the time that every hand should be on board to strengthen the CBN so they could effectively discharge this function so Nigeria's economy do not collapse. Some time back, when I was on another program, I pointed out what the American president spoke about when he was inaugurated Barack Obama. He said then, and a lot of quite a section of the world missed it. He said the rest of the world is holding America's jugular because of America's dependence on oil. He said one of the primary intentions of his administration is to fund and research and develop alternative energy. America buys over 75% of our oil. And whatever America sets out to do, America achieves. By the time America develops the alternative source of energy, who will be buying our oil? And where will we get our finances from? Where will we get our money from? These are fundamental problems that we should be looking at rather than the pedestrian intention of trying to amend the CBN Act to take away the independence of Sanusi